En Hablemos de Real Estate con Carlos Amaya creemos que la familia es la base de la sociedad. Por eso, nuestra misión es proveer información y herramientas a la comunidad latina de cómo lograr la libertad financiera a través de bienes raíces. Today we have a very special guest, someone that I really admire, and this is the first show that we're doing here in North Carolina, and there will be no better person to record this show than with my friend Sam. So first of all, I want to say hi. I want to say thank you for coming to be able to open your schedule and come here to our studio. So Sam, how are you doing, man?
Doing good, man. Thanks for having me. I'm excited. The studio is awesome. I'm just like geeking out right now. We were pushing buttons earlier. This is great, man. I love what you're doing, and I did not know I was the first one in North Carolina. So that is an honor. That is a big honor. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a high expectation as well.
Exactly. Okay, let's go.
Let me tell you, the guys in New York are great. So it's a pleasure to have you here. Definitely. One of the things that we try to do in our show, and Hablemos de Real Estate, try to bring professionals. They're amazing person, obviously, but at the same time, they're doing great things in terms of real estate. So let's start from the beginning. So right now you live in Charlotte, North Carolina. So have you been living here for a long time? You were born here. Let's talk about your story a little bit, and then we just link it with like the real estate experience, and then we talk about something that really curious to learn. Because I'm going to tell you a little bit later, which I mentioned before, that is not a strategy that we usually use in the Northeast. In New York, when you mentioned it, I was like, no, that's against the law, or that's not possible. But I'm so happy to be able to meet me and talk to you. So were you born here, or where you coming from?
Yeah, born and raised in a small town in Virginia, raised on a farm. I'm one of 8 brothers and sisters. And so just had a big family, and truthfully, I was the kid who just got into a lot of trouble growing up. I was lots of energy, ADD, ADHD, and
all the D's.
All the D's. And my mom said, "You need martial arts." And so she put me in martial arts when I was really young. And a long story short, I ended up I was homeschooled, which I'm a huge fan of homeschooling. My parents were doing homeschooling before it was like cool, and like now it's taken off more, but they were doing it 40 years ago. It's kind of when they started 40, 50 years ago, even, and so really what happened is my parents said, I was in this martial arts school, and my instructor offered to sell me the school when I was 15 years old. And so I actually ended up buying my first martial arts school when I was 15. My parents loaned me $15,000. My parents were not wealthy by any stretch of the imagination. And so I learned entrepreneurship by my parents and my instructor, my martial arts instructor, believing in me and actually selling me this school. And so that led me to become an entrepreneur and try to prove to the world that I could be successful. And I know a lot of your listeners, maybe they can relate of like having that passion. I know you're this way. You're a very passionate person. Like having that passion, having that fire inside of you of like, I want to become something more than I am right now. And really that was all that drove me. I wasn't really that smart. I didn't get amazing grades. I dropped out of college. But I was like very driven because I wanted to become financially free. And I can go more into that if you want. And what I
have a couple of questions about that before I comment. Something that I mentioned before. The 2 daughters, Victoria and Valerie, they were homeschooling for a period of time. Even right before COVID-19, Victoria did her high school. The last 3 years and virtual, and it's funny because I used to have this studio back in New York, and I used to have my friends, my colleagues that used to come to do the podcast, and then her office was right next to my studio and my house, and they were like asking her, like, "Is everything okay with you?
Is everything okay?
What are you doing here?" She said, "What are you in the school?" She said, "I was in school." She was like in her like PJs and everything. I just came from class. What are you talking about? And a lot of them were like straight to talk to her, almost like, "Can you please let me talk to her? Is everything okay? Is there something you want to share with us?" I was like, "No, I'm happy." And so I was telling them that was a great program. It was like a virtual 3D school. And what happened? What was really super funny is when COVID happens and everybody was doing like those stupid Zoom classes for like 8 hours. They get in front of the computer, like just getting like back pains. A lot of them just reach out to me, like, "What was the name of the school that you did?" So it became cool. Let's just say it became cool, but before it wasn't. I'm surprised that your parents.
We were all the nerds.
Yeah, like
all the nerds were the homeschooled ones.
What is wrong with you?
Exactly. Like we would get called that a lot. Like if we were out. Actually, when my parents first started homeschooling, that we moved into this small town, and the town came to us and said, you cannot homeschool. Your kids have to be in public school. And my parents said, no, we can. And my parents had to get a lawyer to like fight the town, because they were like, you have 8 kids. This is negligence. But like, of course, like homeschooling just has so many benefits, and it gives you the ability to be self-motivated. I would not be here today if it wasn't for homeschooling, because I was able to buy a martial arts school super young. Like my high school was learning to run a business.
Okay, in terms of that, so you went really fast. Obviously, you have a lot of energy.
Big story.
You
have a lot of energy, man.
you have like a lot more.
I'll tone it down.
No, I love it. No. Tony Robbins will be proud of you.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks. He was one of my mentors. Tony Robbins was definitely someone I learned from. You know, this speaks to having mentors. I know you and I are in a group. The reason we even know each other is because we're in a group where we're looking for mentors to guide us. And I know people listening to this, you're a mentor to a lot of people, man. And like, I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for even Tony Robbins, because I would go to his events and I would listen, and I would copy like whatever he would do with his hands, I would do with my hands. Like that's how much I wanted to copy him. And one of my mentors told me one time, he said, if you find somebody that is living the life you want to live, he said, copy everything. Like at least initially, maybe not long-term copy everything, but at least initially, if they walk out with a suit, you put a suit on. If they walk out, if they buy a BMW, you buy, and he was exaggerating a little bit, but the point is to model our mentors. And I know people model you. And that was a big secret to kind of my journey in entrepreneurship and even co-living and real estate, was just copying the people that were already successful. And I think that's a big secret to being successful in this game.
Totally. And we're not trying to badmouth like current education system, but that's what it is. So a lot of like the copying and everything, that's why it works. Why do you have to? Why do you want to reinvent the wheel when you can just second and just move it from there? 15 years old, you went to the martial art school, and they said, you know what, I'm gonna sell it to you. 15 years old, $15,000, which is a lot of money.
It was.
It still is.
It was.
So tell me about the deal. So how much did they charge you? How big was the place? Was it a long lease? You have he has a lot of like students because you went super fast, which is great. But I just want to figure out the terms and how did it work and how was the experience? Because sometimes you buy something and you think you're gonna make it, and then you don't realize the work that it gets involved to get the place up and running. Oh, it was up already. Just running it and make the whole operation working and make a profit.
Yeah, I was like, the reason my parents loaned me the money was because I was like an apprentice. I had been training at that school. I had been learning at that school, so I was already kind of knew everything about it. And so when they gave me the money, it was, the school had probably 95 students.
Okay.
It was they didn't own the building. They leased the building.
Okay.
It had a 5-year lease on it that my dad had to sign because I was only 15. So obviously I couldn't. And it was, I think the rent was like $3,000 every month for the rent, which was a decent amount for a 15-year-old, right?
For the 40-year-old, still at $3,000.
Yeah, true. The school was only making like maybe $10,000 a month.
Okay.
So you imagine then you have the rent, you have utilities, you have equipment and like gear. You have to buy like sparring gear and stuff, and then you have staff you have to pay. So it wasn't doing very well, and that's why he sold it to me.
Definitely.
And it was a huge building too. It was 6,000 square feet.
Wow, when you say I was waiting for you to say it was a small studio, it was 6,000 square feet. That's a huge place.
Huge. So one of the really smart things that we did, and I believe to win in entrepreneurship and in real estate, sometimes you have to be scrappy. Scrappy? It's like, it doesn't mean you break the law. It just means you do whatever. It means you win. You find a way to win. Matter what. And in business, one of my mentors said, business is like war. It's like resource war, because everybody's out there. They're fighting for the dollars. They're fighting for the talent. They're fighting for the best leases. And so in business, sometimes you have to do whatever it takes to win. So one quick story about something we did to win. We were renting 6,000 square feet, but we only needed maybe 3,000. And so we went to our landlord after we signed the lease, and we told our landlord, hey, we're not doing very well. We were doing okay, but we said we were not doing very well. And we said, we can only afford half of this thing. But we'd already signed a lease for the whole thing. We were locked in. My dad personally guaranteed that lease.
Yep.
But he still let me do it. He was so nervous to even send this email to the landlord. It was like a big corporate landlord too. It wasn't like some nice guy on the street. It was like a big corporation landlord.
Yep.
We said, we can only afford half. And if you don't let us only pay for half, we may go out of business. And the landlords agreed to it. They said, keep $6,000, only pay for $3,000. But the landlord did say, if we ever find a tenant for the other half, you have to give up the other half. And we said, okay, because that's all we needed anyway, right? And so that was like a strategy of like finding a way to win. And that put, back then, that put like, $1,500 every month back in our pockets. So that's $18,000 a year. When you're 16 years old, that's a lot, right?
Yeah.
But it was a scrappy play that got us to really have a win.
And I love that you mentioned that, because right now we are in a time in the market we are like facing a correction right now, and that's why strategies like the one you implement, that it's such an amazing way to be able to make it happen.
Yeah.
And something that I said to my daughters all the time, and I know they're gonna laugh when they see this. I said, you always should ask, regardless of how crazy the question may be, or the request that you want to ask. And the worst thing they might say is no. So, but if you don't ask, you're gonna have like the regret that, what would have happened if I would have asked? And in your case, you know what? Was it crazy? It was 50% less for the whole amount of the place that you ended up getting it. And they could have said no. And you said, okay, that's fine. So we have to deal with it. But they said yes.
They said yes.
And that was a game changer. So that's why kudos to you. So you made that great move. You were like, okay, just now it's getting little by little. It's in the numbers that's looking better.
They started to look better. Yeah.
What came next? So I know the end of the story because I know you, but
right.
So how did it go? So you went from that place. What was that located, and what happened next?
So that was in a small town called Amherst, Virginia. Literally like 2,000 people, probably more cows than people. It was like a farm town kind of thing. And so I told my mentor, I said, I want to go to the big city. He said, well, if you want to go to the big city, because again, remember back to how we started this podcast, it was the drive, the desire of, not being satisfied. And I know some people may disagree with me on this, but I think that in life, you can be happy, but not satisfied. And that's the balance that I've always, I wanted more. The school was doing well. I was actually making like $45,000 a year. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but to me, that was like as much as my dad made at the time, right? We were not wealthy by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm thinking I've retired. I'm thinking I've made it, and I'm 16 years, but like I was still hungry for more. So I moved to a town called Charlottesville, Virginia, where the University of Virginia is. And I thought that was the big city. It's really only like 70,000 people. It's not huge. And I started a martial arts school, and I started it from scratch. I had 0 students. I would go out into the parking lot of the grocery store every day, and I would say, as people were putting groceries in their car, I would walk up to them in my karate uniform and say, hey, I'd bow to them, like they do in martial arts, and say, excuse me, I'm doing a survey. Would you mind answering 3 quick questions? And I would go through this whole script, and I had this little room in a hotel, this little conference room. It was 20 feet by 20 feet, so 400 square feet. And that was my studio. I rented it for like $600 a month. It was like really cheap. It wasn't even the best area. It was not a good area, but I was cheap rent. And that's where I built that school. Now that school, I was there for maybe 4 years. I put my brother in charge of it, and it became in the top 1% of all martial arts schools nationwide in terms of how many students it had and the revenue that it produced. So it became a very, very successful school from scratch.
Wonderful. And what happened with the one that you have in this small town?
I sold it to my brother.
You sold it to your brother?
Yeah.
Okay.
I sold it to him on own. I did not make good money off of it, is the truth. I financed the whole thing. He stopped paying me after like 3 or 4 months. He's not my brother-in-law anymore.
That's the reason why. Okay, so
pay your bills.
Yeah, pay your bills.
You want to stay brother-in-laws.
So you went to this bigger city for you at that time.
Yeah.
And then you get the great numbers, you get recognition in terms of like, and what happened next?
Always had a mentor, put someone in charge, put my brother in charge, and then I kind of stepped back from the day-to-day operations.
Okay.
Then I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. Now that is a big city. That's where we're sitting right now. I moved here about 12 years ago. And I bought a couple of martial arts schools, and I paid a lot of money. All my savings I put into buying 2 schools here in Charlotte.
Okay.
They did not go well. I failed. I called the guy. The guy sold me 2 schools that he had already operating. And literally 2 weeks later, I called him and said, I made a mistake. I'm giving you 1 school back. Like, no money, like nothing. Like, I know I just paid you. I paid him $70,000 for the school. And I was probably 20, 21 at the time. So it was like my life savings.
Okay.
I paid $140,000 for 2 martial arts schools. I even sold like silver I had, like silver bars that I had, like everything I had, right? And I gave the school back to him. I had visions of grandeur, and I couldn't actually make it work. So I failed a lot. And then, but I buckled down. I kept going, and then we built. Long story short, we just started. I focused on the one that I left. He said he was going to sue me because I didn't sign the lease, so he was still stuck with the lease. But he said he would take it back. Anyway, long story. But basically, what happened is I focused on one. And then I got another one and another one and another one. We built a small chain of about 7 martial arts schools. And we were doing a couple $100,000 a month, which for me was, big money, gross revenues, obviously. And I built staff and built teams. And I wanted to have 100 schools at the time. I do not have 100 schools, and that's not my vision anymore. But that was kind of what I built. Then we built an online program, and we have students training to get their black belts in 28 states around the United States. So I was successful in that route. As I'm sitting here today, I own none of that anymore. I've actually sold it all off. Even the brand was called Up Level Martial Arts. And that's because I want to focus more in on real estate. I want to focus on co-living. I want to focus on something that I believe can truly help solve affordable housing.
And it's amazing what you're doing right now. We're gonna get to that, but before that, the real estate. Quick question. So you say so many great things. I advise you that if you listen to this, and I know Victoria's doing a great job editing, just go back and listen to it again, because you mentioned like, okay, so you have the desire to become an entrepreneur. You get a loan from your dad, and then you start running, and you realize that, you know what, I'm going to go to a bigger city. And then you put you put somebody else to run. And that's not how it usually works. A lot of people that, well, if you guys remember, we've been talking about a lot here in terms of the cash flow quadrant. Yeah. You have the employee and you have the self-employed, and a lot of people do that. I mean, they go there and they open a martial arts school, and they become like the coach or whatever the name is. I don't know what is the lingo, and they say they're forever, and they sometimes some of them are happy, sometimes they're not, and they struggle because they cannot grow the business. But in your case, you're like, I want to do more, I want to do 7, I want to do. So when did that come from? I mean, is your family an entrepreneurial family, or what? Because you mentioned like mentors, you mentioned like a lot of great things, and sometimes we take it for granted. And I could have just go to real estate because that's what I want to know. But at the same time, so how did it came through? Was your father like a business owner as well? Was your environment? How do you get they say go broad. They say you get bit like a Spider-Man. At one point did you get the entrepreneurial bit you, and you become the person that you are right now? Because you just mentioned great things in terms of, okay, so I did this, and now my vision is this, and I want to help solve the house insurance. So what does that come from?
It's a great question, man. It's a really good question. I think I got bit by Spider-Man, by the spider. I have a couple things to say about this. One is I got bit by that spider through, well, here's how I want to say it. The why was not always that good. My why, first of all, was because I wanted to stick it to my friends, because my friends never really fully accepted me. I was always like the runt, like that was the one that was left out. I was the youngest of my friend group. And my friends would make fun of me. I got teased a lot. I got bullied a little bit growing up. And so But I wanted to be accepted by those kids who teased me. I wanted them to like me. I wanted them to think I was cool. And the only thing I could think of to make them think I was cool is if I had more money than them. And this is why I say that like your why to achieve success, it doesn't have to be perfect right away. That wasn't the perfect why, right? It's kind of a mean why. But it was like, I just wanted to show my friends that I could be better than them. But it did give me energy to go become financially free. It did give me that bite, that spider bite that you were saying. And then over time, you kind of realize like, well, there's actually more important things to life than just making your friends feel bad about themselves and trying to beat your friends, right? And so your intentions, I know our pastor, someone we listen to, says your intentions get upgraded as you go through life. So it doesn't matter so much what your why is. It doesn't have to be the perfect one, but that's what it was for me. And then I'd say the second one was my dad always used to tell me, my dad invested in real estate right before it crashed in 2008. Ooh. And he didn't do everything perfectly right. He was on adjustable rate mortgages. He bought homes highly leveraged, 100% leverage, and then the market crashed and they did not cash flow. So he would tell me things like, real estate ruined me. Sam, I have no more retirement. You have to help me retire. And as a kid, you hear those things, you're like, you take it seriously. Even if he's not serious, you take it seriously. And I was like, okay, I have to make enough money to help my parents, to be successful. So that was another big drive behind why I did that. But I want to answer another question you asked, man. And I think that not everybody goes through life like I went through it. Not everybody has that entrepreneurial feel. And I think it's really important that everybody on here asks themselves, who am I?
100%.
And in entrepreneurship, there's 3 types of people you can be. Number 1, you can be an entrepreneur. You know you're an entrepreneur if you're like, you just love deals. For lack of a better way to say it, you kind of love the art of the deal. You love making money. You don't really care. Like, for example, if you have a business and you would sell that business if somebody gave you the right offer, you're probably an entrepreneur. For Donald Trump is like the ultimate entrepreneur.
That's the name that came to mind. When you said an art of the deal, I was like,
yeah,
I was like, that's him. And I remember him before he was in politics. I used to watch all the shows, The Apprentice. I used to go to the. I used to record the radio shows that I used to do in New York City, and I was around the corner for the Trump Tower. And I used to go and have breakfast at the Starbucks. You can't get in anymore, but in the lower level. So yeah, so that's exactly the person that came to mind.
Funny. So he's like the ultimate. Now everybody can have a piece of being an entrepreneur, but some of you in your core, you're just an entrepreneur, and you need to know that. That's your core, who you are. Now, the second type of person there is someone who's a manager leader. And you know you're a manager leader. You know that's your core if you love systems. You think about, well, like, what if I put that person with this person, and then, oh my gosh, and you build teams really well. You're a manager leader. Now, you might have a piece of entrepreneur, but you need to know what your superpower is.
Right.
We're using the Spider-Man analogy. What's your superpower? You know? And the third type of person that you can be is an artist. And an artist, they don't care too much. Like an artist, like they just love the business because they love doing the thing that the business does. So for example, for me in martial arts business, the artists are the people who just love martial arts. They're the artists. If it makes money, great, but they love the art. For me, that was never me. I would always tell people, I like martial arts, but like if I wasn't doing martial arts, I'd be finding another way to help people.
Yeah.
So I'm more of an entrepreneur at my core. But then I also wasn't a manager leader. I would hire people and like I never knew how to put them together. I never knew how to create good job descriptions. That wasn't my superpower. But here's the beauty of this, man. If you know which one you are, I'm an artist or I'm a manager leader or I'm an entrepreneur. All 3 can be insanely successful, but you got to know what you are because then you need to know who you need on your team because every business needs all 3. In my martial arts company, I needed the artists, because if nobody loved martial arts, the students would think we're just all about the money. I had to have manager leaders because I had to create teams. And then there had to be somebody, it was me, focused on the business and the money and how much we're charging and who's doing that. None of them are bad. But once you understand who you are, you can then be like, okay, I got to look for the other two.
And I love what you mentioned, because so many people, they've been in business for like 10, 20 years and don't even know who they are. And they realize something is wrong. Business is not making money. And then why? Because they are an artist and they love the product. They spend forever. They want to make the best cake. Although people just want to just buy a cake and that's it. So, and I usually don't watch TV as much. But this weekend, and it's funny that you mentioned the story, I was watching about Oscar de la Hoya. I don't know if you know, the boxer. No. He used to call the Golden Boy. So yeah, he won the Olympic medal, and he became like one of the best paid athlete, and right now he's like one of the biggest promoters in boxing, and he said he's like 45 right now, 46, and he's saying that he became who he was in boxing and business, because he was teased by his friends in school. You know, he was asked, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" I said, I want to be a boxer. I want to get a gold medal in the Olympics. And everybody was laughing. He said, I'm gonna. And since then, he always find people that in his mind they were laughing about him. Like there was like the opponents. They respect him because he was young. He was like a Hispanic, a Mexican American. He was like, so he always got that point. Obviously, I'm not saying that he's perfect. He has so many things that he needs to work in his life, but regardless of what the why is, if you have a strong why, you can make it happen. And that's what Tony Robbins mentioned all the time. And you mentioned about the three different like characteristics of different kind of like professionals, personalities, and that's amazing. Okay, so you knew all of that. So yeah, I'm the entrepreneur.
Can I say one thing about that really fast?
No, you cannot.
Some people need encouragement.
Sure.
And some people need challenged. Like I had a martial art, and this is important to know. I had an instructor that used to always tell me, if he wanted to motivate me, he would tell me I can't do it. Because if he was like, "Oh, you can do that," I wouldn't be motivated. But if he was like, "No way you can do that," I'd be like, "I will show you." You know, like so it's like it's a way to motivate people. Some people are motivated by the challenge of like, "No, you can't do that." "Oh, yes, I can. I'll show you." And he would always smile. He'd be like, "You can't make that much money." Smile, and I'd be like, I see what you're doing.
Yeah, and that's why you have to know yourself, and you have to make sure the team that's around you know you, okay? Because if you are that person, and then somebody else just start telling you, what, I think you can do it. I'm confident in you. I know you can make $100,000 in a week, and you're like, well, that's true. Yeah, I think that should be able to do it. Okay, so. Yeah, obviously your entrepreneurial spirit is super, super high. You've been selling your business multiple times, and right now you sold it recently. Real estate. Your fire
real estate.
Yeah, real estate.
Let's talk
real
estate. Yeah, we both love real estate.
Yeah, we love it. Yeah. It's called Hablemos de Real Estate. So
exactly.
We haven't said much about real estate yet.
Exactly.
So. If I had bad experience, usually when you have someone, a family figure or like someone in your environment that have bad experience about something, like anything, business, an addiction, or whatever it is, so you don't want to go there. Okay, so I don't want to get burned like my father. So he said, you know what, you have to help me retire. You're doing great in terms of business. You're making money. So how did you make the transition? Although I get you were doing both at the same time. You were doing both at the same time, obviously. So when did you start doing real estate? What was your first deal? And how did you get the knowledge to start? And how do you do it?
Yeah, man, it's a big question. That's a big question. There's lots of, but
I'm gonna change the name of the program, like big questions.
Yeah, I love it. Big questions. I hope I can match it with a big answer, a good answer. My dad did have that experience in real estate, but the truth is I didn't start by investing. I wasn't an investor initially. I just thought I don't want to throw away money in rent. I mean, like if anybody out here, if you're renting, like you don't have anything to show for the rent other than, I mean, it literally is that money is just gone. At least if you buy a home, you're putting some money towards the mortgage. You're paying down that mortgage and you own a real thing that hopefully, not always, but hopefully goes up in value. It appreciates. So I just bought a house because I thought it was the right thing to do. It wasn't that complicated. I just said, okay, I'm going to buy this little 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom condo. And I bought it for $67,000. This was 2010, I think. Yeah, 2010, 2009. And I just bought this little condo. I lived in one room and I rented out the other rooms. And I made a little bit of money to live in my own house. So my rent was basically free. It just made a lot of sense.
What year was that?
That was probably in 2009, 2010.
2009.
I started, yeah.
When did Bigger Pockets start?
Oh, gosh, I have no idea.
Okay, no, I was like, maybe you were maybe before them, around them, about the house hacking, they have to give you like
credit.
Credit.
I'm going to trademark the name. No. You cannot use house hacking. I started it.
I started. Go ahead.
But no, I mean, the Hispanic community gets this. Like, Americans are like, you know, like, I have my gun and my big house and like, you can't take it from me. But like, all other cultures but American culture, they get the concept of sharing a house. Yeah, Europe does it. Yeah. Europe, it's very common. South America, it's very common. Central America, it's, you know, multi-generational living. Here in America, we like take our parents, put them in an institution. It's messed up.
It's funny that you mentioned that. Recently, I had a long trip to New York, back to New York with my daughter Victoria. She's 19 right now, and I was telling her about that. I said, here, the kids finish like high school and they get into college, and they push them out like a little bird. Okay, right. Go fly.
Yeah.
And I understand you have to be living with your parents forever. Okay, but right. If it makes sense, like like co-living, we got to talk about that, you know, and you pay your share of the place that you live in, and then you have it. Why do you want to go to another place and pay rent to somebody else when you can be in your own house with your own family, save money, invest, and do whatever you want? Yeah. But here, for some reason, and I know a lot of friends, you know what? As soon as my kids 18, 19, I'm going to push them, they have to do it. I did it myself, so they're proud of it.
Right.
Why? Right. I mean, yes, that's true. I mean, again, I don't want... it's a crazy story, and it happens to me when I was working in the law firm. Someone was like, "Oh, my little kid," and I was like, "How old is your little kid?" He was like 43. That's a real story. But to your point, unfortunately, some of the community here, they don't see it that way. You know, they see, you know what? Even I have the empty house, that's my house, and I'm proud of it.
I'm proud of it. Yeah, and I'm one of 8 brothers and sisters. So like I'm used to a lot of people sharing a house. There was 8 kids, 2 parents, so 10 people total in a 3-bedroom house. That's what I grew up in. So sharing a house.
Homeschooling.
Homeschooling. We were there all the time. Oh my gosh. So it was very common for me to, it's a good point. Homeschooling. Yeah, imagine that, guys. But so that I didn't think about investing. I just thought I was doing something cool to make my life cheaper.
Sure.
You know, one of the things that you need to be doing to reach financial freedom fast is to pay very close attention to your expenses. You need to resist what they call lifestyle creep. And this happens with everybody. You just start to spend a little bit more. You go to a little nicer restaurant. You buy a little nicer car. You rent a little nicer apartment. You buy, and life's... You know, it used to cost you this much to live, and now it's costing you this much to live, and you don't even know what happened. And so, at the beginning of your journey, you have to, like, pay very close attention to reducing. What can we do to reduce expenses? So my way of doing that was rent some rooms.
Just imagine, they were like that, my brothers and sisters. I don't know if you have sisters, but...
I do have 4.
I have 2. And they paid.
They paid.
And they don't take my clothes away, so...
They take your clothes away. Wait.
No, your people that you rented to.
Oh.
So you try to imagine like they're your relative, your brother and sister.
I gotcha.
And then you can charge them. And you make the rules.
Them. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So I moved. So that was in Virginia. I moved to Charlotte.
Okay.
I bought a house here in Charlotte because again, it was just like the right thing to do.
What did you do with the other one?
I rented my room.
So you rent the whole
Yeah. And so I had my brother manage it. Actually, my brother moved in. One of my brothers moved in, and then I had 2 other people rent.
So you have a cash flowing property there.
Cash flowing property. Wasn't making a ton. I was like a couple $100, but it was still like, hey, that it was going up in value. And so I moved here. I bought this house, and I lived in one room. And I remember the first night I bought the house. I moved in. I was all by myself, and I just remember I was like, it's too quiet in here. I need some because I'm used to commotion. And so I started renting out some rooms, and there was like 2 living rooms. So I took one living room and I turned it into a bedroom, and I added I took the half bathroom and I added a stand-up shower, so it was a full bathroom.
Okay.
And one day I was walking with one of my friends. Actually, he was my first and only friend in Charlotte because I just moved here. His name's Jason. And I'm walking with Jason, and he goes, "Hey, how much are you renting all those rooms for?" And I said, "Well, if you count me as a renter, it's like $2,875. And he goes, "Whoa." He said, "That house would normally rent to a single family for only like $1,300.
Sure.
It was not in a good neighborhood. And this is like 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, "Really? I'm doubling the rent by renting it out by the room." And I loved my roommates. One of my roommates, his name was Marco. He was from Mexico. He was an engineer at Bank of America. He stayed with me for like 2 or 3 years. He was awesome. And the reason he wanted to live, because he wanted to send all of his money back to his family. He was making one day I came by the desk and I saw his W-2, his tax document laying. He made like $85,000. So I thought, why isn't this guy living in his own apartment? He can afford his own apartment. But he wanted to send his money back to his family back home. And so he wanted to live cheap. And so we became best friends. We would do projects together. Like, it was a cool community. And so what I ended up doing is when my friend that was the banker said to me, "You're doubling the rent," that's when it clicked. I said, "Wait a second." Because remember, my drive was to stick it to my friends, was to have more money than my friends. And so my brain was like, "Where's more money? Where's more money? Where's more money? Where's more money?" And so my brain was alert. So when he said, "You're doubling the rent," my brain went, "Wait a second. This could be a strategy.
I'm gonna stick it to my friends.
I'm gonna stick it to my friends. I'm gonna win. I gotta find a way to win." It'll be scrappy, right? So I said, "Well, would this work with 5 bedrooms?" And I bought another house with a loan with only 3% down, so I didn't have to save up like hundreds of thousands. I had to save up like, at that time, like $10K. I think it was like 10 or 12,000. It wasn't that much. And then I did 5 bedrooms. And then I said, well, what if it worked with 6 bedrooms? And then I bought another house 1 year later. And then I did 7, and then I did 8. I'm making a long story short, but like,
love it. I have a bunch of questions, but go ahead.
And then next week we're launching our first ever 10-bedroom home.